Hello, everyone. Welcome to Take Back My Brain. I'm your host, Lori Hammer, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Kelsey. She is a friend, she is a colleague, and she is one of my favorite human beings. And we are going to talk about pandas
Aw,
and autism. And she is an expert in this area. And she and I both have an incredible vision to keep helping mamas and babies and families. And so I am very, very delighted, Kelsey, to have you here today.
thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I've learned so much from you, and I really feel like we're better together. And the
Yes.
world, the moms, the moms of the world need practitioners who can work together and learn from each other. So I cherish you so much and everything I've learned from you. And I hope all the moms listening get a little bit of what they need.
Yeah, I hope so too. So, I want tell people what you do.
Okay. So I have a wellness center in Bend, Oregon, and we call it No BS Family Health Care. So we do mostly customized healthcare for families working from preconception through fertility. I've been a private practice midwife for about 14 years, going on 15 years. And so we do a lot of full family stuff from, like I said, preconception all the way through pregnancy, birth, and then we have it's alternative, but it's really like normal
Right.
holistic pediatric care. So we help parents become experts in taking care of their own kids so they can be more independent from the system and become really confident in natural health solutions like how to use herbs and homeopathy, how to heal their gut, and we do detox and we do amino acid therapy. Um, I work mostly with autism and PANDAS PANS, vaccine injuries, toxic injuries in children and in adults. And then I have other members on my team that do fertility and women's hormones and weight loss coaching. So we can kind of get everybody everybody in for what they need.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So we got connected because we were in the same mastermind group. And then Kelsey is also in my amino acid therapy practitioner course. And so we've connected on a lot of different levels and we have a lot of the same passions. And I love what Kelsey does. So I want to dive into PANS, PANDAS, and autism and kind of just define it all first, because not everybody knows what that is. Unless you have a child with that, you'll be like, I don't know what PANDAS is by any means. So can you start by defining that and then we'll chat about it?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is, do we really know what it is and
Yeah,
do
I don't
we
know that we
really
do.
know what it means? I think people talk about a lot of things as if it's autism and maybe it's not, right? So the original diagnostic criteria for autism was a human who from birth struggled to make connection, like they couldn't have a normal emotional connection. And that is not what we're calling autism today.
Correct.
What we see with autism today and autistic people is this range from children who maybe meet part of that, original criteria, but who really have these complex medical issues where they have inflammation and dysbiosis in their gut. They have inflammation in their brain. They have these chronic viruses and they have a high toxic burden. So, this is something maybe they've been genetically predispositioned to. We know that there's a little bit of debate about whether it's less than 10% or less than 5% of children actually have the genetic autism gene.
Right.
Um, and then we have these people who are high level workers, right? They're CEOs or they're surgeons and they're calling themselves autistic because they feel like they're neurodivergent. Those are very different things, but they're all being labeled as autism. So, from my perspective, I look at autism and pandas and PANS as autoimmunity in the brain. Same with
Mm.
ADHD. To me, they're all symptoms of an underlying environmentally triggered very complicated medical set of medical conditions, and it's different. What triggers each person is different. But that's where there's so much hope, is because if it's not genetic, and maybe even if it is, if we remove those triggers
Right.
from that child's environment, if we change their environment, if we rebalance their gut and remove the toxicity and identify for each of them, right, which infections are a big part of the problem. Infections are huge, and especially with pandas, the infections drive autoimmunity in the brain. And
Hmm.
maybe that's part of the difference with autism is there is an autoimmune response component, but there's also maybe infections like Epstein-Barr or cytomegalovirus or herpes simplex viruses. They're kind of just like I don't know, like a splinter in the nervous system, or like a, how else could you describe it? There's like this constant irritant and energy drain, like a hole in the bucket,
Hmm.
constantly taking the toll on the body. So that's a really long form answer to, like, I think we can really say they're both cell danger response. They're
Right.
both different ways the body is trying to save a child's life from
Hmm.
any number of the factors we just talked about.
So let's talk about the cell danger response because you and I are both like we've got to talk about the cell danger response. So, um,
Yeah.
can you define that for us?
So, cell danger response is this cycle where if it's completed all the way, there's these different stages. There's CDR1, CDR2, and CDR3. And in these stages, the mitochondria actually will arrest their development or pause their development, or it even almost seems like they go backwards,
Hmm.
which is really crazy when we think about autism in pandas because what we're actually seeing is not accidental. Like the body's doing it on purpose. And cell danger response, if we get stuck in CDR1 or CDR2, autism and pandas, especially CDR2 for pandas, we see these really intentional things happening inside the body that most practitioners label as dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction.
Right.
But what I love is when we understand it, we know it's on purpose. The body downregulates methylation on purpose. And we don't exactly know why. I have my own theories of why that
What's
would
your
happen.
theory? I want to hear your theory.
I think it's because the body knows it if it makes a new cell, right? Methylation is a part of cellular
Yeah.
like division, creating new cells. I think it knows if it makes more cells like that one that are as sick as that one, that that's actually going to be more harmful to the
Purple.
person.
Hmm.
Right. And
Our bodies
so
are so smart.
yeah, and I think that's what I want parents to understand, and that's what I want to change, right? I think there's this divide between circadian biology and quantum medicine and functional medicine. And I think we can serve people really well by understanding there's elements to both that are really important for these kids specifically that we're talking about because all of the quantum medicine and sunlight signaling and exclusion zone water and all of those things that happen in the cell are so important, and reconnecting to nature is important, but also understanding why our body's doing what it's doing. Like if
Right.
parents can start to think like the cell, right, like why is it down regulating cellular inflammation? Why is it down regulating energy? Is that intentional, or is that because of a virus or an infection or toxicity? And understanding where that child is at in that moment of time makes a huge difference. You know, do we need to treat it with herbs? I
Hmm.
personally think that natural treatments are almost always superior to pharmaceutical treatments. That's just my thing. Or do we is nature enough, right?
Right.
And I think for
Right.
a lot of kids, the goal is to deal with some of those triggers so that nature can be enough.
Yeah.
But right
Yeah.
out the gate,
You
it
need the
doesn't always,
herbals.
anyways,
Yeah.
digressing a little bit, but I just think it's really interesting. There isn't only one way. There's
Right.
so many ways we can help our children, and understanding why the body's doing what it's doing is a really important starting place.
It is because we haven't been taught to understand what the body is doing. We're taught like this is a symptom, let's cover up the symptom. This is a response, so it must be wrong. So if anything's uncomfortable, if anything looks like it's a digress or a regress, right? Then it's not working. When in fact that might just be part of that healing process. Um, and that can feel like really scary, especially as a parent. You're like looking at these things, whether it's a virus going on with somebody that has PANS and autism, or see just even like a head injury, there's a healing process there. Then all of a sudden you have all these symptoms that come back from, this, traumatic brain injury. And then you see process again. You see success again. It's sort of like having a fever. Your child usually grows in mentally and physically after they have a high fever, but the high fever is scary. And so we want to suppress it, but their body actually needs that in order for that next phase of growth. So as a
Totally.
mama of two little pumpkins, then you've gone through a lot
Little
with
feral
them.
beasties.
Little monkeys. Um, how do you teach your clients to overcome that fear of, oh my gosh, it's not working? Because we've all done it, right? We're like looking, we're like, oh my gosh, this isn't working for my kid. And to not stop what you know is going to be better in the end.
Well, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. So there's this side of there's gonna be ups and downs on the way up. Like
Hmm.
healing isn't always a straight line trajectory. But I also think there's this culture around detox and around working with these kids that make certain symptoms with treatment okay that shouldn't be okay,
I agree.
right?
Yeah.
Moms will be saying like, "Oh, your detox bath isn't working unless your child is having a Herx response." A Herx is when,
Hmm.
you get a negative response to a detox or to a treatment. But if we're helping our kids the way that they really need, those responses should be minimized. And
Right.
so I think it's important for parents to understand that their intuition is the most important piece for helping their children heal. And if their child is less than 8 or 9 years old, they have to heal their own nervous system because their children are going to need their nervous system to be intact to heal. That's another reason I love amino acid therapy
Hmm.
is because we can get the mom feeling more regulated and feeling more safe so that her child has a safer place to come to during their
Yeah.
healing process. Um, I also think journaling and tracking symptoms because a lot of times I'll be working with clients for a year or more and we'll get to a place where maybe it feels like there's a little plateau or maybe a challenge and then they're like it's not working anymore, they're not getting better, but then you forget all the things
You
they've
do.
they've overcome before
Yeah.
because we're so invested in them getting 100% of the way there, which is so beautiful that we forget where they came from, right? Like,
Hmm.
and it's easy to get discouraged. And I can use my son as an example. So when I was pregnant with my youngest son, I was in a really abusive relationship and I almost died between pregnancy complications and, other stressors I won't get into. So this remains family friendly, but I was not well and he was born normal. We didn't see any problems right away. And then he started having seizures. Like I would be up with him every 20 minutes all night long. He would have
Wow.
these seizures. And that emotional component was, I really believe, the biggest part why. There were other infections, like I had Epstein-Barr that I hadn't dealt with the way I would deal with it now. And I had um uh just some other things going on, some mitochondria stuff that I would have treated differently if I knew what I knew
Right. We
now.
learn things. Yeah.
But yeah, and the trauma in pregnancy changes your child's brain chemistry. It's a
Mm.
big deal. And
Hmm.
so amino acids are so powerful too for like that's how I got over my PTSD from all this, right?
Right. Right.
But this kiddo now he had a full regression, completely stopped speaking. Had he was hypertonic, so one of his sides was like this and had
Hmm.
really, really high tone all the time. You would hold him and he would just on this side, and the other side was hypotonic, so like loose and didn't have normal function. And he couldn't hold a pencil, he couldn't throw a ball. He like had all the regressions.
Right.
Socially, struggled with eye contact, severe social anxiety, and now I fast forward, right? I helped him heal through all those things. And now if he eats a little bit of sugar or candy and I see a little sign of regression, like just that hint of regression, I freak out because I don't ever want to go back to where I was.
Right.
And so I
Right.
have to a place where I've written down, this is where we came from, and this is how far we came. And he's still healing. Like we met almost all of our goals, but he's still healing. His nervous system's still healing, his body's still healing, his brain is still forming. And and support, right? Like I need people like you in my life that I can call when it's stressful or when my kids
Right.
have a hard time to remind me of the wisdom of the body. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where being willing to examine our fundamental beliefs about the body and about what symptoms mean and about how the body heals is one of the most important things we can do for our clients and that we can do as parents, because
Yeah.
if we truly believe the body was designed by God to heal in the right conditions, and we invest our time and our energy into creating an environment that that healing can happen both in the body and outside the body,
Right.
then there's this peace and this confidence that it's going to be okay, even when there's hard days. Um, I think those are the most helpful things. Is that helpful?
Oh my gosh, it's so, so helpful because I mean, like you were saying before, the PTSD of all of it, because you as a mama and as dads too, if we have dads listening, I mean, you were so invested. You do anything for that little peanut, right? I mean, you die for them. And to see them suffer and to have challenges and it just makes me want to cry because you don't want any of that for them. And so we will pour out ourselves for those kiddos. And one message to mamas that we've talked about before we got on is that we just want the moms to be okay because you're the ones carrying the heavy load here, right? And
Yeah.
so whether it's amino acid therapy or having, support group, like you have to have your own nervous system, like
Yeah.
really, really grounded, all the time. And I have some friends in my life, they're like, you just don't really get upset about a whole lot. And I'm like, it's because I use my amino acids all the time. When something comes up, I'm like, oh, I'll just take some amino acids, right? And it's not like you're not using that in place of, prayer and friends and all those kind of things. But you have to take care of your body. Your nervous system has to be regulated in order for your kid's nervous system to be regulated. It just does.
Right. And I think that's where we can see this blend between, right, the circadian biology and the quantum medicine of we can get everything we need with a healthy cell membrane from the earth, and this other space that's it's not integrative medicine, right? It's still
Yeah.
very natural, but we're thinking, let's make up our own term. Let's call it cellular medicine
We'll
because
just call it we'll just call it our medicine. It's fine.
it
Whatever you want
doesn't
to call
fit
it,
into
Kelsey.
anything,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
like if we know toxins
Mm.
and stress and illness disrupt our body's ability to make neurotransmitters and have a balanced brain. I've never met a mom whose kid doesn't experience those things all of the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
And the amino acid therapy is so effective and so powerful in helping them rebalance
Hmm.
that watching clients and watching my own family, it makes me wonder, did we ever have a really well balanced brain
I
before
know,
this
right?
in
Yeah.
the first place? Because the onslaught in the world we live in is constant, right? Like being a working mom, homeschooling,
Schooling. Yep.
pregnancy, sicknesses, those are all healthy stressors in the right environment, but they still deplete us. And um, I think having this tool so that our children know what a balanced brain feels
Feels like.
like. When we have a balanced brain and we can teach them, they're going to regulate their emotions better, they're going to focus better. All of the other things that we're doing to help them heal are going to work better. And if you're a parent who has a child with pandas or autism, the road is long to healing. It's totally possible. I see it happen every day. But if you can take that edge off for them of the constant OCD like
Hmm.
feeling, of the fear and the separation anxiety
Yep.
and of the inability to sleep or relax. Like we have to think about them as little adults. They're not feeling safe.
Hmm.
How are we supposed to heal a brain that's on fire,
Right.
right? Like that's PANDAS is a brain on
On
fire. It
fire.
is when the part of the immune system that's throwing the fire alarm is going at 100 miles an hour, and the part that comes in to put the fire out isn't showing up. So they're getting all the alarms and the danger signals in their brain, in the glial system in their brain, and no one's coming to turn the alarm off. That's what PANDAS is. And so if we can calm them down emotionally with that, with the, I call it brain balancing, the
Yeah.
amino acids, how much more can they heal when they just feel
Yeah.
safer, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you have the calm brain, they can start to think through things. I've used amino acids, for a really long time, but another student in my class, she was just sharing the other day that she tried one amino acid with this young boy, I think it was a boy, who was very violent, and they were going to actually put him in foster care, in emergency foster care,
Wow.
because they were concerned about, the other kids in the home. And she just started to balance his serotonin. That was the first thing that they did with amino acids. And the kids slept all night, went to school the next day, and they weren't violent. And so then they've
Wow.
continued to work on those things. So it was just like the nourishment to the brain that's been missing. And when you calm that down, amazing things can happen. I have a lot of kids that their executive function is challenged, so their ADD, ADHD. And we start using the amino acids, and that's the first thing the mom says is like, oh my gosh, his executive function is better. He's actually asking, like, hey, I think I can go do this now. Or he actually makes his bed and puts his clothes on and brushes his teeth all at the same time,
Totally.
you know? And those are a big deal. That's lifelong, those are lifelong skills. And so, oh my gosh, they just started doing them because we balanced the brain with specific amino acids and some dietary changes and some little herbal therapies, whatever it might be. It's just incredible what the brain and the body can do. And so we have all these diagnoses out there, whether it's PANS, PANDAS, autism, ADD, ADHD. And I think you and I have the same mindset that, okay, there's a diagnosis, but that's not who they are. That's not who these kids are. That's not who these parents are, right? If we can just give the brain and the body what it needs, fix the deficiencies, come alongside, reduce that inflammation, it's a whole ripple effect for the rest of their life.
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
I think it brings up this point too of moms, right? And how important the mom is. When I
Yes.
was overseas working with refugees, I used to blog. It's gone now, so don't try to find, don't try to go find it. But
Okay.
I I made this quote that went everywhere for a while. I had said, if you want to nurture a nation, nurture its women, nurture its
Hmm.
mothers. Because what I saw in the camp is if we could help the mother be well, everyone else would get better.
Right?
And if the mother was unwell, the children were not well.
Mhm.
And when we look at autism and pandas, and we talk about real root cause, parasites are not real root cause. Like
Right.
genetics are generally not real root cause. It's possible, but that's rare. These things that we're chasing are symptoms, and they start with the mom, right? The mom's
Mhm.
hidden viruses, the mom's stressors, the mom's trauma, past and present trauma, the mom's deficiencies, the mom's brain balance, all of those things, the mom's toxicity, right? A lot of these
Mhm.
heavy metals they accumulate 4 generations of women. Isn't that interesting? Four
Four.
generations of women accumulate lead, cadmium, mercury, and we pass it down to our children in the umbilical cords of mothers, of babies at birth, they find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chemicals.
Yes.
And then there's the infections, and then there's the emotional component, and all of those things together. This is really our root cause for these kids. And
Mhm.
so we can come in and treat the autism injury, or the almost autism injury, depending what you want to call it. We can come in and treat the pandas, which is they're not that much different.
Right.
The way that pandas and autism impact the body is not that much different. The primary difference is the trigger for pandas is typically strep, and for pans can be a myriad of other things. One thing I'll throw in there though is there's always mold. Okay,
Always.
always mold, always,
Always
always,
mold.
always with
Yeah.
pandas and pans. And when we're talking about the type of programs that we do and that I do with these kids, the ones that drop out because they're not getting success, which is so, so, so rare that I see that, but they're hitting a wall and the parents are like, okay, we want to do something different now. It's always because there's mold in the house.
Yeah.
And the parents don't want to believe it, or they had some inspector come in and say it's not a thing, it's not a problem. And so coming back to this like quantum biology, right? This
Hmm.
side of the spectrum that I love is we were never biologically designed to live and cope with mold.
No.
It's not in our biological blueprint, right?
No, in fact, in the Bible it says, if you have mold in your house, burn it down. Like
Burn it
there's
down.
no remediation, there's no like cut the wall out. There's no, it just burn the sucker down.
And we don't have the equipment
Yeah.
biologically to cohabitate with mold.
No.
And so it's a really important part of the picture, I think, where practitioners that are so there are so many practitioners out there that are so much more intelligent than me when it comes to pandas and autism, and they're missing this piece
Yeah.
because it's emotional and it's really, really hard to decide my house and my body as a mother is part of the reason my child is sick.
Right.
But we can empower families to have what they need to create a healthy living environment, including properly dealing with the mold in their home, the bacteria, right? Like the actinomyces in their home, and effectively treat the other underlying issues in themselves,
Right.
right? The mother, then we're going to give birth to healthy children. And instead of having to put our child through all of these things, they're going to be born well with a much better chance because they're not going to be born in cell danger response.
Yeah. And I think that's so key. And I know I have a few women right at the moment that I'm working with that they feel so guilty or they don't want to acknowledge that, hey, I need to work on myself, in order for, this growth process of my child to go well, even out of the womb. We're not even talking like in the womb, but once babies are born, and if mom is still, jazzed up and there's mold in the home and maybe they have a yeast overgrowth and those kind of things, those are still things that are going to affect, especially for, breastfeeding, um,
Yeah.
the baby. And so to be insanely diligent about taking care of yourself because it's going to affect how that child develops, right? I mean, we are responsible for this. And I think that is such a heavy weight for some women, and they feel guilty or it's overwhelming. And I'm like, hey, that's where the aminos come in, because if you balance the brain, then all of a sudden your brain isn't busy, you don't feel overwhelmed, you can actually think through things. But I have a few mamas at the moment that it's just even hard to get them to take those amino acids because they're like, I don't want that to be the issue, I think. Underlying there's some guilt there. There's just like, I don't want to go down that road. Everything's gonna be fine. So what do you say to those moms?
Well, honestly, I tell my story because I knew better. I've been in natural medicine and I've been a midwife for much longer than I've been a mom. And I had two kids that had health issues. My first was he had PTSD. Like I married who I thought was the right person, and that's a story for another
Any other podcast?
a whole other situation. But it created a very toxic environment for him, and he developed severe, severe allergies. Like he had over 35 allergies by the time he was like 13, 14 months old.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat, I wanted an EpiPen for him. I don't even believe in pharmaceuticals really. And I was trying to find someone who would prescribe an EpiPen because it was that serious.
Wow.
He would have problems breathing and he would cyclically vomit from the stress of the situation. And I knew by the time he was about that old, I knew that there was a really serious danger with the relationship. And I knew that I was dealing with some health stuff. And I had another baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I wasn't the healthiest and that it wasn't a good idea, but for whatever reason, right? Sometimes our ovaries
Hmm.
take over our brain.
They rule our
And
brain, yes.
and I was the sickest I've ever been. I couldn't keep water down for weeks at a time. Luckily, I'm a midwife, right? So I had my assistant come and give me IVs, and that's how I lived. I lost 35 pounds in the first few months of my pregnancy. I couldn't keep saltines down. I couldn't keep anything down. I had a situation where I was paralyzed from a medication I tried to stop the vomiting. And I knew better and I was doing the best that I could.
Hmm.
And I grew a lot through that process. I escaped that relationship and I created a safe environment for my newborn and for my toddler, and all my toddler's allergies went away. They
Hmm.
all went away within like 8 weeks of leaving that
Wow.
environment. They all healed. Emotional toxicity is just as dangerous to our
Yeah.
children
Or more.
as, yeah,
Mhm.
as the mercury and the mold.
Yeah.
And that's when my little one started having seizures, right? And then I got my little one through his process, and then my big one got Lyme's disease from a tick bite. And I got to help him heal through that process, and he's in remission now too. But I think all that to say, like, we all get put into positions as mothers that are impossibly hard.
Right.
And I know for me, I'm not just carrying the burden of my own choices, but my mother and my mother's mother and my mother's mother's mother.
Hmm.
And some of that's not my fault, but the responsibility that we have to decide. And I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm the only person in my family that doesn't have any major autoimmune or cancer or serious issues. The only person.
Hmm.
And I do live differently. But I think there was a moment when I decided,
Yep.
I know that I can live in a way where I don't end up chronically ill. And I know that I can fast and that I can balance my hormones and that I can balance my brain and that I can ask for help even when I feel embarrassed. And I can talk about all the things I wish I'd done differently with my kids. And I can learn to love myself where I'm at because I did the best I could.
Yep.
And they healed. And I think that decision we have to make as moms because, oh, here's doggy.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to get thrown at you. You never know if your kid's going to get an infection that will trigger pandas or if your brand new house will suddenly grow mold. And
Right.
what are you going to do about it?
Hmm.
But I think if we have this conviction where we really believe that the body is designed to heal,
Hmm.
and we continue to give it what it needs, and it's constantly going to change, right? Because we're constantly
Yep.
bombarded,
Yep.
and we take back our authority. I think this is the most important thing. This is the very first step. Is I know for my family and for me, I got here because my mom and my mom's mom and my mom's mom's mom at some point abdicated their authority to the medical system,
Yep.
and the toxins got in my body
Hmm.
and the way of thinking changed. And we have given our responsibility as parents to the government. Are we allowed to say this on a podcast? Are we going to get
I don't
taken
know if
off?
we'll get censored or not. We'll see.
We
Go
give
ahead.
the responsibility away to somebody else. I'll rephrase. and and then we start to question our instinct,
Yeah.
right? And if we're
Yeah.
talking about the most toxic toxins in the world, gaslighting has to be among them.
It does.
When we question our reality and our intuition as moms, we give it all away.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to love ourselves enough to heal ourselves and accept ourselves enough to hear our instinct and to trust it, because that is your God-given equipment to understand what's going on with your kid. I can help you, Lori can help you, so many people can help you, but if that's turned off, it's whack-a-mole, you know?
It is. It's completely whack-a-mole. And that brings me
Yeah.
to this thought, because I've been struggling with some of my older clients, like the 70 and 80-year-olds. And yes, they 70 and 80-year-olds do come to see me and we do amino acid therapy and we work on their autoimmune stuff and amazing things happen. But you were just saying, how this 4 generations. So I'm looking at like if I'm taking myself, my daughter, and like my mom, so at least 3 generations, maybe 4 generations, depending on how old they are, right? So that generation is getting bullied by their doctors right now, like into
Yeah.
taking medications. And they were that generation that, kind of gave over that authority to the medical system, to like,
Mhm.
oh, if the doctor says this and this is what I have to do with my child, we have to go to the hospital to have a baby because it's an emergency. We can't just do it at home because that's the way we've done it for thousands of years. Or, we have an ear infections. We certainly can't go to a chiropractor, maybe just put garlic oil in their ear. There's a reason why that's going on, all these different things. And so we get routed into this medical system. And so, I was on so many antibiotics as a kid. I was on so many different, my vaccinations were different than yours because I think I'm, almost 20 years older than you. Um, but
No.
how old are you?
I'm not saying.
Okay, so I'll be 52 this year, so I think it's pretty close. Anyway, at least a good 15 years older than you. But like our vaccination status, and we look at our kids, like my son, and then he just had a son. So there's three generations right there. So we go back to my mom, which was the fourth generation. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at this progression, and I made a decision just like you, like the buck stops here. And I didn't make all the right decisions. And, my kids have had challenges, but we've been able to work through those because it decided the buck stops here, right? And so I
Yeah.
see I see my son now with his child, him and his wife, they're making different decisions. And they don't have the pressure of like people thinking that they're out of their ever-loving mind because they aren't
Yeah.
taking the jabs and they did a home birth and they did all these things. And is everything perfect? No, but it's still a better step forward, right? And so I think,
Yeah.
our us as mamas can say, we're going to reverse the situation because I'm looking at these, grandmas, great grandmas, they're just still getting bullied by that medical system. And there's great doctors out there. So don't get me wrong. Don't send me hate mail on that. But the
Totally.
system
Totally.
as a whole is one to gaslight and to bully into doing things that you don't really want to do. Like intuitively, we know what things are wrong and what things are right for our bodies. It's just if we can get over that mental hurdle that we actually want to take that authority back and take control and, walk in that victory because I mean, our health, we're supposed to walk in victory. Our spiritual life is to walk in victory. Our emotional life is to be in victory. That's very, very biblical. Um, and so when we're talking about autism and PANS and, other, I just call them mental health issues. And that's a bad thing right now too, because everybody's like, ADD is my superpower. Okay, great.
Right.
I
Right.
love your mind, right? And what if your brain was balanced? How much more superpower would you have, right?
Right.
If your gut was balanced and you didn't have to fight through every single day, how much better would it be for you?
Yeah.
So you're a millionaire, a billionaire because you're able to, do all these things with your ADD and harness it in and stuff. And how much more could you do if your brain was actually balanced, you know?
Right. Because nutritional therapy is not going to change your mind. It can't alter
No,
who you are. It's not
it's not
possible.
going to
That's like
change your mind. It's just going to give
if
you
I
more
ate too
power
much
to take
chicken,
that mind. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love for parents with kids who have autism that want to celebrate that part of their uniqueness. Healing their brain doesn't change their mind. It
Right.
gives them the freedom to express it so the rest of the world can enjoy it too.
Exactly.
So important because they were designed that way
Mm-hmm.
for the world, right?
Yes.
God gives each of us a gift to share with the world, and it's trapped inside their body. If
Mm-hmm.
they're dealing with autism symptoms or panda symptoms, and we want them to be able to share it. And
Yes.
I think, watching my own child go from being so inside his own body, and it was like I would look in his eyes and I knew he was in there because I'm his mom, but it was like he was so far back I couldn't see him. And as he started to heal, he's right there. Like when I
Yeah.
look in his eyes, I can see him. Like I can see his wholeness. And he is one feisty little feral, wild,
Mhm.
amazing creature who knows his mind and he
Yeah.
knows who he is and he isn't floundering and he's young. He turns 5 next month
Aw.
and he like knows who he is.
Yeah.
And I never would have seen that and nobody ever would have seen that. And as he grows, he's going to be the kind of man who challenges
Yep.
injustice. I see it in him, and who challenges deception.
Yeah.
He has zero deception tolerance. And I love that about him, but I never would have been able to see that
Right.
if he didn't heal. And when we think about these issues, it's important to understand their brain is inflamed.
Mm-hmm.
And what we are seeing is not their personality. We're seeing brain inflammation.
Yeah.
That's very, very different than the original genetic autism. It is
Yeah.
not the same thing, and
Not.
it's totally treatable for almost all kids
Mm-hmm.
if we find the right triggers. Same with pandas. It's
Right.
a really hard road. It's really, really emotional. But we have to come back to taking responsibility. The relationship I was in, my marriage, he did not support any type of natural functional medicine, chiropractic, or anything. So one of the things I did to maintain peace and try to be cooperative for our children is we went and saw other types of doctors. And so when my son was having seizures, okay, he was having 20 seizures every 20 to 40 minutes, all night long. They were mostly at night around sleep, every once in a while during the day. And he was 4 months old. And
Mm.
this went on for a while. And we saw the best pediatric neurologist I'm not going to say where, but at the teaching university hospital, the closest one to where we are. And they told me it's normal. It's normal. Kids do this sometimes. He just needs to go on this medication. I'm not putting my 4 month old on a medication that just silences his brain and dumbs him down and traps him inside his body.
Right.
And if I would have listened to that, oh, this is normal,
Yeah.
and allowed that to become my foundational truth for my son,
Mm-hmm.
who later like regressed from all his speech and all that stuff, how would that have affected who he is today?
Right. You wouldn't have seen him ever.
No, and
Ever.
and I don't think that that neurologist was trying to harm my son or
Correct.
steal anything from me. That's just the fundamental system is missing the big point, and I think maybe for a different reason, but in that same place of it's just really emotional, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to accept that collectively as mothers we've allowed our world to become this place that's very dangerous to have children in.
Yeah. It's true.
But I think like my God-given mission, aside from being a mother, is to
Mm-hmm.
give a generation losing its voice back.
Yeah.
And I love treating these kids. I love teaching parents how to treat their kids, but it will never be enough.
Mm-hmm.
Until mothers can take responsibility and take back their own authority and heal themselves,
Yeah.
it's not going to be possible. And we're looking at an entire generation who has alterations in the way that they can connect. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things with autism and with pandas that can be really overwhelming, right? The OCD, the stimming, the the restricted eating,
Right.
the I can't take my kid places, the fecal smearing, the eloping, those things are stressful.
Yeah.
But our most basic human need is connection.
Yep.
And we cannot have an entire generation who can't tolerate healthy connection, who
Action.
can't just receive that feeling of being loved and being safe and exchange that. And so I just feel so passionate about this. And that's one thing I love about the work that you do is we have to help heal our mothers.
We
It's so
do.
important.
It is so important because
So
we're the heart of the
powerful.
home. We're the heart of the home.
Yeah.
And I always say this is a ripple effect. If you work with the mama and you change the mama and she knows how valuable and beautiful she is and her body is healthy, then the family changes and then the people around you change and there's this whole ripple effect. And so I love
Yeah.
what you said. If you want to, what did you say? If you want to change a nation, you
You
have to
want to
start
nurture
with
a nation.
you want to nurture a nation, you have to nourish
Yeah.
the women, the moms first.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, that's so true. It is so true. And that's why I love working with moms. I love doing the amino acid therapy because it is so life-changing. You have a really cool testimony. Would you want to read that testimony? Do you have that up from the
Oh
mom
yeah,
who
from this
started
client.
working with you and the aminos and stuff?
Yeah, so this woman reached out to me on Instagram and said she has an older child with pretty severe pandas and um autism, I think level 3 autism. And She had been bedbound. She hadn't left her room for 2 years or fed herself. She wouldn't wear clothes. And we were doing a consult to see what could we do to help her get a little bit of relief and see if they could try treating her again because they have tried so many doctors and so many things. And she sent me this message. She wrote it out as a testimony for me to share online, and I'll just read it for you. It made me cry.
Made me cry
This
too.
was over this was over Easter weekend. I started getting these messages from her. So, um, she said, my 14-year-old autistic, PANS, and severe OCD daughter had been homebound for over a year and a half, limited to only the bedroom and bathroom. She refused to wear clothes because of sensory issues and her OCD. She would stand for several hours a day to avoid sitting in contaminated places. She would sometimes even resort to sleeping on the bathroom floor or sitting on the toilet for hours at a time. She required so many accommodations just to get through the day. We had tried countless medications and supplements, psychiatric and functional medicine doctors for nearly a year. After 10 days of doing what Kelsey recommended, she was getting dressed, leaving the house, visiting with family, feeding herself, and sitting in chairs. Unbelievable. Thank you, Lord, for guiding us to Engedi Wellness. I think this is so cool because we didn't do anything super complicated. Like she
Right.
she couldn't tolerate anything, right? So we did one or two amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how she got them in here. I'd be really curious to hear that. And we did some homeopathy for brain inflammation.
Right.
And I empowered the mother. That's all
Mm-hmm.
that I did. I
Yep.
empowered the mother with tools. And it
Yes.
transformed her daughter came out of Pan's jail. In 10 days, she came out of the jail that she'd been living in. And it doesn't always work this quickly,
Right.
but so many times it does. And I hear stories like this all the time. I had another child who was ripping her hair out and chunks of her mother's hair out.
Yeah.
And we started her on amino acid therapy and some inflammation support. And she was like sitting at a chair and eating a meal within a day.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this is like, it's such a powerful tool. Everyone, I love this. What you're doing is you're giving it back to the people. And I think that's really important as practitioners that we don't keep them secret for us. There are
Yeah.
some things where you need a practitioner's help, right? It's
Right.
complicated or it's
Mm-hmm.
nuanced and you shouldn't have to be alone. You just like
Oh,
I wanted support for my kids. I wish I'd known you when I was going through what I was going through just to have
same there.
someone on
Yeah.
my team
Yeah.
because being empowered as the mother is so, so, so important. And then she was able to take that hope and that courage and a little bit of skill
Uh-huh.
and totally transform her daughter's life. And it's just one of many stories. I'm sure you hear stories like
All
this
the
all the
time.
time, but
All the time. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And pandas and pans, for those of you who don't have children with that, it's really close to impossible to even get a diagnosis. There are very few practitioners that know what it is. A lot of practitioners don't even believe it exists, and it's often misdiagnosed, I believe, as autism and um it's just all around the most challenging thing to treat. Nobody wants to treat it because it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
But this simple tool gave them so much relief and so much space. Imagine what they can do now,
Yeah.
right? Now we can do cell danger response. Now we
Yeah.
can do root cause
Yes.
medicine.
Yes, absolutely. And she can go outside. She can put her toes on the ground. She can, take a bath and, do all those things that she wasn't able to before. So it's
Yeah.
life changing. And
Yeah.
it was because of the mama, right? Because she sought help.
Yeah.
And all of you dads listening out there, if you're still listening to this podcast, because we're kind of talking for a long time, but all you dads out there, your wife knows. The mama knows what's going on. And so I would encourage you not to be the no guy. Like really hear her out and allow her to do the exploration. And I would encourage you to explore with her with an open mind because mama intuition is, oh my gosh, it is God given. It is God given. And we know that we know. And if we don't know and we're scared, we go to another woman to find out, right?
And we
Like,
can tell who's the right person.
and
Like
we
we
can
know
tell
in
who's the
here.
right person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they shouldn't feel bad for needing to do that or wanting to do that. And so I would just encourage all you dads out there to Like your wife is the canary in the coal mine. If there's something going wrong in your family, it's going to express in her physically or emotionally. And so really pay attention to that because it's going to spill over to the kids. You know, that old mantra, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Well, if mama's not healthy, nobody's healthy. And
Yeah.
so just to be super diligent and super aware of what's going on with your wife,
Yeah.
is I think is really, really important. And we don't talk about that enough. I mean, I don't want the guys to get a bad rap out there, but I think they're like, you know,
Totally.
so many things are like, I can't believe my wife wants to do this another therapy. I hear that a lot. And
Yeah, we're all
I
the
get it.
crunchy, crazy moms
The
that,
crunchy, crazy mom, you know, who believes in the chemtrails
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. But some of this stuff they may be crazy about, but some of it I just want they want you and their kids to be super healthy. That's all it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
And dads have such an important role there too, because the
Yes.
way they talk to and treat the mother of their children and their wife will transform generations. Like the
Totally.
words that come out of a father's mouth
Hmm.
affect their family for generations. It's so, so powerful. And a woman who is nurtured and cared for in the postpartum, this is just one example, is is like 10 times less likely to have postpartum depression than
Right.
someone who isn't supported.
Yeah.
Like the relationship between the mother and father is so much more than just how their relationship goes. And as a very independent person, I'd like to think, like that I could have been totally just fine if I had just taken care of my own stuff, like
Hmm.
worked harder on myself. But in a relationship where I didn't have the support of the father for
Right.
anything I needed or my children needed, nothing I could have done was enough except to leave.
Right.
And I don't even believe in leaving. I don't even believe in that, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And I think that the way fathers speak over their children for healing and over their wives for wisdom, listening tenderly, and be fierce, right? Like if you see your wife or the mother of your children that is believing a lie about herself or about your children or who is being gaslit, don't tolerate it,
Right.
right? Like with fierceness and gentleness, let
Hmm.
her see, hey, you're buying into this thing culturally that autism is a personality, and do not tolerate that because she knows it just hurts.
Right.
And I think pairing that fierce and protectiveness that only a man can bring with that intuitive and sensitive understanding of what's happening behind the scenes in the home is so profoundly powerful. And I'm sure you see this clinically. I
Hmm.
see when both are present, when the mom is advocating for her child and listening to her intuition and has the father's support,
Yes.
they go so much further
So
than
much
when they
further.
don't.
Yeah.
So much further.
Yeah. So much further.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. And that's the way God designed it, right? That's the way God
Yeah.
designed all of that. So this has been amazing, Kelsey. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was so fun talking to you.
Yeah. So
We
I
could
just
talk
pray
all
that this,
day.
I know we could talk all day. So, but we'll end, we don't need to be the Joe Rogan podcast right now, but maybe later.
Yeah.
Um, Anyway, I just hope everybody got something really, beneficial out of this. If you're struggling with PANS, PANDAS, autism, really anything, ADD, ADHD, you just want your own brain balanced as a mama, just reach out to us. Pick one of us, reach out to us because we're both going to be more than happy to help you in any way, shape, or form that we can. And so thank you all for listening. Thank you, Kelsey. I love your heart. I love your mission. I just love you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
All right, everybody, make sure you like, subscribe, and share because this information needs to get out there to all the mamas. So God bless you. See you in the next episode.